What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast interview where every single week I interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, and strip top badasses out there dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, for their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And today, you guys, got another absolute rock star guest on the show. So our guest today, you guys, just to give you a little background on him, is a nationally recognized speaker, mentor, and trainer who specializes in helping customers build their businesses through automation outsourcing. He currently owns 4 companies and helped start one of the nation's largest real estate coaching programs. So he grew up playing hockey, went on to play hockey at the collegiate level, then played on a professional level for 8 years. And then after his hockey career ended, he acquired his first flip, jumped into real estate investing. He's done over 700 transactions since. He's also started 2 successful real estate coaching programs, 3 virtual staffing companies, a used appliance company, and much more. So today, you guys, our guest is the owner of REVA Global LLC, which focuses on offering trained real estate virtual assistants to real estate professionals, which I'm stoked to have our guest on, because this is probably one of the number one questions I get asked on a daily basis of, hey, who is a great virtual assistant company you can recommend? You know, right? It's just a popular thing that's taking place, and it just makes sense. So I'm really stoked and honored to have Bob Lachance on the show. My friend.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. No, I'm honored, man. This is going to be a lot of fun, man. So I'm, before we get into all the things you're doing today, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led him here. And, you know, you've been down a lot, it seems like there's been a lot of journeys that led you here, but if you take it from your hockey, professional hockey career ending, from there, like what led you to jumping into business in the first place, jumping into flipping homes? And then, it sounds like you might've had some detours and then led you back to what you're doing today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that I always cover this and I talk about is, when you're transitioning from a, profession to a profession, it's never easy, right? And I know you talk about that a lot on your podcast. By the way, great podcast. I'm an avid listener, so appreciate you for having me on. But the transition, many of your listeners may be jumping from a professional career to being an agent or a real estate professional. And it's definitely not easy, right? So at the end of my career, I saw the writing on the wall. I was in Europe. One of the main things that I saw is I was on a flight actually to Belarus from Switzerland, and my wife had a scheduled C-section for my first kid, and I missed my kid's birth. So after that, I'm like, you know what? The writing's on the wall. I could run around Europe for 10 more years and play, making, okay money. But in the end, I would have to come back to reality and start my career. So not to mention, I left school 2 classes early before getting my degree. So I was a proud college dropout because I signed a professional contract. So I would have to also go back to school. My decision was, join an industry where I didn't need a college degree, right? Which I did, or go back to school and finish my degree. So I figured I would start reading a lot of books when I was away, playing hockey, and everything led me back to real estate. So I jumped into real estate right when I got back, and I hit the ground running first and foremost as a real estate investor. Got in my car, farmed areas, made offers. I got an offer accepted, did my first flip, did pretty well. Probably made about $32,000 and change on my first flip. And then I got my real estate license in 2005. Started doing short sales, and I know a lot of your guests that you're on the call have done a lot of short sales, which I think is they are a pain in the butt. I'm be totally transparent. They're not the easiest, but they do teach you every aspect of how real estate goes, right? You're dealing with banks, you're dealing with attorneys, you're dealing with lenders, you're dealing with buyers, sellers, everything around it. It gives you a quick learning curve. So I decided to get a business partner in 2005 around that time. We started doing a lot of short sales. We probably were at 300-400 short sales when a first company came to us and said, hey, we want you to help run a coaching program with us. So we took all the reins there, started that coaching program. Did that for about 2 years, joined another coaching program to help them launch it, which is still going on right now in the real estate investing side. And then through that time, I noticed there was a huge need. not only on the real estate agent side, but also on the investor side of, something that fills a void in the industry, which happened to be virtual assistants. And I got introduced to that about 2013. And the light bulb went on, and I said, you know what? There's a huge niche here and a huge opportunity for real estate professionals that need trained virtual assistants. So that's how I really got my start in the virtual assistant world, also as a real estate investor and agent as well. So do a lot of stuff. Used appliance company. I started chuckling when you when you said that one, dude. I'm going to tell you something. I highly recommend don't get into that business. Do not. I literally I could show you some text right now. You'll laugh, but one of my partner actually was like, dude, we got to sell out because we only made $7,000 last year. So don't do that. So anyway, that's a quick, long and story short of me.
Now it sounds like you discovered, through doing your short sales, and then as you transitioned into helping these other companies develop and scale their businesses, it sounds like you kind of identified that, hey, my business superpower, if you will, was in systems and processes and scaling. I mean, is that kind of a fair statement to say? Definitely.
And I think when I look at every business, you start breaking it down. And, I use this example. I read a lot of books. This last one I read was Leadership by John Maxwell. And they talk about being a soloist and then turning into a conductor. So I look at, and I equate that to, having a virtual assistant helping you out. First, you could look at it as, every individual, no matter what, look at a real estate agent, right? When they work by themselves, they're like an orchestra. They're playing every single instrument, no matter what, right? They're lead generating, they're contract to close, they're doing every task under the sun to get that property from getting a listing, right? The marketing side, getting a listing all the way to getting their paycheck, right? To where that would be considered soloist compared to a conductor where, you look at a conductor, they're playing one hand movement, they're playing beautiful music, right? The musician goes like this. Same thing is now starting to build your team, starting to build your business. That's a good example of when you start hiring virtual assistants. Guess what? Now you're starting to make the music, right? Whereas you're playing the music to making the music. And that's what I see a lot of how a lot of businesses end up going. You start as a soloist and you end up as a conductor when you start growing.
Now, when you said that you discovered the huge need for this, was this just coaching clients inside the coaching companies that you were helping build had a need, or was this kind of start out as a problem you were solving for just yourself and the companies that you were helping operate?
Yeah, it was actually both, because I saw a huge need. For me, I look at, there's three main things when people ask me, hey, Bob, why would I even look at hiring a virtual assistant or growing my business? There's three things that I've noticed. Number one is time. So, and I'll break each one down, but one is time. We only have so much time in our days. We all have the same 24 hours that we have. Second one is efficiency. And third one is scalability, right? So if you're looking to bring on anybody, whether it's a virtual assistant or someone in your office, right? The first one is, like I said, time. Time means something different to all of us. When I look at time, I say I have 3 kids. I have a wife and 3 kids. And when I wake up in the morning, I want to make sure that I could get up in the morning, cook my kids breakfast, send them off to the bus, right? Every single day. But what I found, and with our clients too, and we keep a lot of data in our business, and I highly recommend, everybody keeps all of the data that no matter what it is. I'll give you an example. So when we bring on a new client as a real estate agent, we keep a lot of data. We ask them questions. What's the biggest pain point, right? So a lot of agents say, I need more time in my day. They give us stories. The last one I got was a story of, hey, I was on vacation in Mexico and I had my phone right on me, right? I'm literally sitting there watching my kids play. My wife's sitting right next to me. My phone beeps and she's looking at him saying, you better not pick up that phone. And he's looking at that saying, that one phone call can be a buyer, seller, and equate to $3,000, $6,000, $9,000, $12,000, $15,000. So that dichotomy right there, that's time, right? Time being present with your family is an example, right? For me, many real estate professionals want to coach their kids in different sports, right? So if they have to stay up till 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning doing all the admin work when they get a new listing, that's going to affect them in the morning when they want to wake up and cook their kids breakfast or get them off the bus. So it compiles on each other. So that would be one definition of time. The second one would be efficiency. So efficiency, we look at efficiency in different marks, right? It's how much could you get done in a certain amount of time and being efficient with it. So it's doing more in less time. If you could do more in less time, that is something big for any real estate professional. And then finally, scalability, right? It's, I hear a lot on your podcast. I talk to, hundreds and hundreds of real estate professionals out there, and they talk about, well, this year I want to grow my business, right? And growing your business means more transactions, means making more money. It's really now jumping into building your team. So for me, I help them build teams using virtual assistants.
Yep. Love it. So then, at what stage would you say, because I've heard people, coaches or whatever, quote unquote industry experts get there and say, oh, day one, man, you should be delegating and outsourcing. And my thought process has always been opposite of that of, number one, like you need to learn the processes and how you want it done. Like do it long enough where how you want it done. So then you can effectively train and QC it and whatever, like for a new agent that's starting out. But then two, they got to do it responsibly where there's enough income coming in to be able to afford, that person. So a question that I get from a lot of real estate agents is like, at what point should I look to delegating and hiring, whether it's a virtual assistant or just an in-house assistant, but like at what point is it a good time? Because most wait until it's way beyond that point, right?
Good. I break it down a couple different ways. Number one, you actually spark something. I always like to say, learn it, or you got to learn it, you got to live it, and you got to gift it, right? So if you look at that you look at your career, look at my career, first we had to learn it, then we lived it, right? And then now we could gift it back. Podcast, same thing, right? We're sitting here talking about our experience because now you learned it, you lived it, you gifted it, right? So it's the same thing, but you really take a step back from that concept and you say, okay, what exactly does it look like? And when do I need to actually hire a VA? I look at what are my costs at home? If I could live off $5,000 a month, right? What am I bringing in now as an agent? So if I'm bringing in $4,000, I can't hire someone. If I'm bringing in $5,000, can I hire someone? If I'm bringing in $10,000, can I hire someone? So I always look at, what are they bringing in to the household first? Because you got to make sure you pay your bills. If you can't pay your bills, very difficult to hire anybody, right? Once you feel confident on that side of it, I'm more of a risk taker as well. I'll put away 6 months worth of reserves, and then I'll go all in and hire somebody, right? As an example, I just want to make sure that for me personally, my family's taken care of first, and then I'll risk taking that jump that I know I'm going to make it because, I played sports all my life and I've always taken a lot of risks. Not everybody is like me on that side of it. But you have to look at your risk tolerance as well. But what I would do is, long story short, obviously, what I would do is I would get those 6 months worth of house reserves, 3 to 6 months probably, and then I would take that leap.
Yep, love it, dude. And then, what are some things what are some common mistakes that whether it's people that have signed up with your guys' firm that just dropped the ball on their end or weren't prepared on their end, or that you've seen, whether, in your past experience with those that are hiring virtual assistants where it's been their lack of action or whatever that failed the relationship? Like what do we need to make sure that we're prepared for and make sure that we also don't do, right, to ensure that we create success when hiring a virtual assistant?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'll go back to a podcast that you ran. I think it was a solo one. It was on hiring, right? And it was the 4 R's. I can't remember the D, right? But the 4 R's were roles, responsibilities, requirements, and then results, right? So in within that, number one, you got to know what role that you're hiring for. So is it under lead generation? Is it under marketing? Is it contract to close? Like, what is that role that you want, right? The second one has to do with when it has to do with what exactly tasks that you want done, right? So now it's like a job description kind of, an exact top task that you want done. And then your second to that or third to that would be requirements, right? What do you want? What past experience do you want that person to have, right? Do you want them to have call center experience? Do you want them to have a 4-year degree, right? So those would be just some requirements. Our company handles all of that, on the recruiting side for everybody. And the final one is results. You have to make sure that all of us are extremely, we are lasered in on the results that we want, right? For instance, and we also have to be realistic. So to answer your question, I've seen some mistakes where some agents said, I want a VA to dial 2,000 dials a day, right? Which, well, I heard it on a podcast. I heard, and when they heard it on that podcast, it really had to do with a company, right, of 10 VAs calling at once. And then they gave the statistic of you should have 2,000 calls in one day. As an example, I'm just giving you an example of just to make sure that the expectations are set right up front. So going with your 4 R's, I think that's a really, really good thing to follow is number one, you need to know what role that you want, right, to fill. You need to know exactly what tasks and then requirements and in the end, the results that you want in your business. Just be crystal clear on that. And I think that'll be very, very helpful with, with working with a virtual assistant.
Yeah. And it's so, when I came up with that 4RD, process, and D is for the details, right? That's going to be like, hey, do they need to be in-house? Can it be virtual? What's the pay look like? Because I have an in-house videographer, an editor. Well, that's hard to do a virtual assistant, but they have to be physically there with me, following me around with the camera, right? So, but then, my executive assistant is virtual, right? So, and also the results can be so different per position. Like my executive assistant, like when I was looking at those results, right? My number one result was I want to be bored, right? Like that was the ultimate win, right? Where she takes so much on my plate, like I'm looking for new projects because I'm bored with my time, and then from there, dude, let me just grab this so I can use it as an example.
Okay.
My real estate team playbook, right? So like this is our team Bible. We have every process manual. We have our 17-step contract to close, which then breaks down to like 58 points, our listing input process, like communication process, all of that. What I've always been concerned about in the past, because like on my real estate business, everybody is actually in-house, which I would love to go with virtual. And I've even thought about, okay, hey, instead of adding on more transaction coordinators, like getting in a virtual assistant for each transaction coordinator to help them take them from a 25 deal a month capacity to 50 or whatever that may be. Right. But sometimes like the fear I've had, and I'm sure it's a limiting belief, is how do I train them to follow my processes the way that I want them done being virtual?
So it's the same exact way. Here's the way I look at it. Like this stat, I don't know if this stat is correct. I could be off by a percentage, but if we all look at everything that we do, 90% of everything that we do is done either over phone or the internet. Right? So the way I look at it is that means 90% of all of those, what's in that playbook could most likely be done by somebody not sitting in your office, right? So the training side of it to me is really easy. Again, I came from kind of a training background, helping start different coaching programs. So it would be literally following that playbook that you just showed, right? You have contract to close. It's very systematic, right? Whatever's in your checklist, you just go through check, 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 meaning if a property gets under contract, there's tasks that need to be done by uploading to the MLS, right? There's stuff that has to be uploaded to the MLS. Contracts need to go over to, or that's when you get a listing. When you get a listing that need uploaded to MLS, and there's some other steps you take in there. There's some pre-listing, listing, post-listing checklist as well that you follow. And then as soon as property gets under contract, that's a contract to close where majority of it is going back. A lot of it is going back and forth with buyer, seller, mortgage, right, broker, attorney, etc. on coordinating that. So for me, I just see it every day. So it's normal, Well, maybe for you that hasn't done it, I understand. I 100% understand it. But anything that's done sitting right here while we're talking on our, sitting on our butts right here, can be done, with a virtual assistant.
Yeah, man. And it's, so it's been year and a half now since I hired my first executive assistant that's virtual. Helps me out in personal life and all my businesses.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And she's in Michigan. I'm here in Arizona. And I think we've only had one phone call outside of the phone interview during that 18 months. It's like everything that if I need to show her to do something, dude, I just screen share. Okay, here's what you do. Send it to her. It's up to her to create the library. And if she needs to create a checklist or manual out of it. And she's never asked me the same question twice.
Quick video, travel, calendar, whatever you want done. Exactly. Yeah. It's the same exact thing. Doesn't matter where they live in the world.
Now, would you say that, and again, this is I'm coming from a guy that in my real estate business, again, just speaking specifically to that, I've always had everybody in-house. And I'm a processes and systems freak. And I see so many people failing when they're hiring because they don't have, it's like the greatest person in the world. If they don't have great systems to follow, they're not going to get a great result. And it sounds like you guys, because you're so niche to the real estate space, that you might be able to help real estate agents design some of these processes and maybe you already have some in place. But would you also say that for somebody to have success with hiring a virtual assistant, like it's really important that they have their process and systems in place so everybody's on the same page?
Absolutely. And yeah, and virtual assistants too. I mean, they help me in my business to create standard operating procedures. When I'll give you a fun example. So this is before I actually got in the virtual assistant world. My ex-business partner, when we were doing short sales, because we created it was a big short sale course about that big, right? And one thing he always told me, he goes, you have to set your business up like we're going to sell it one day. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? This is back when I first started. I didn't know my friggin' ass from my elbow, So he had to explain it to me. He said, listen, he goes, it's standard operating procedures, right? Because now when you create a marketing department, if you hire someone, you want to hand that marketing department over off to somebody else. Same thing with acquisition, same thing with negotiation. So that whole thing, I learned a lot from exactly, it's your book that's sitting right behind you, right? So now I'm on the side, now that I have a virtual assistant company, our virtual assistants actually help get all that information out of real estate professionals, real estate agents that want to create systems. Like, for example, like lead generation. Everyone has different types of lead generation, right? You may do Facebook ads. Well, guess what? That's a whole process and procedure in and of itself, right? So it's going on to Facebook, it's screenshotting, it's writing all the copy, it's whatever it is there. Another one would be all right, if I'm an agent and one of the pain points I have is lead generation, right? It's getting new mail lists. So what I would do is I would have my virtual assistant compile a list like probates, pre-foreclosures, what are some other ones? Code violations, maybe out-of-state owners. What's a couple of those? Evictions is another good one. So that's just out of the box. So they'll compile that list. They'll skip trace it, then they'll cold call it, right? All different procedures. You see how that's done? And then they'll cold call, text, and hopefully set an appointment for me, right? So that would be an example of a procedure. And I know that is a very big pain point for agents, obviously, on that side of it is, consistently getting that done, because when you have a listing, it kind of throws everything off. You have a buyer that is chasing around, trying to get put into a property and showings, that kind of muddies what you're trying to do. So virtual assistants definitely help on that side of it.
So it sounds like you guys have a pretty strong discovery process, because the reality is most real estate agents I meet don't have this stuff in place. But it sounds like you guys have a great discovery process of pulling that out of them so then you can develop these together.
Yeah, for sure. And we have just a little bit of how our structure is. You also get a virtual assistant, but you also get what we call a client service manager, CSM manager on top of that virtual assistant. So that helps with, setting up systems, setting up processes, also making sure they get an end-of-day report, right? So for our real estate agents, they get an end-of-day report to see what exactly that virtual assistant did that day, because we found over the years of doing this with our, hundreds of clients that that is a big need, because, think about this, this. how do I know what you're doing today? How do you know what I'm doing today? Right? And that's one of the questions a lot of us always ask is, all right, I love the concept of virtual assistant, but how the heck do I know if they're working or not? How do I know if they're sleeping? Those are a lot of things that we get all the time. So we put in some little, some stop gaps, if you want to call them, with our client service manager. That's why we put this client service manager in over the virtual assistant. And we also have a start of day report that says, here's what we're going to do today, and an end of day report with here's my results. So that has filled a lot of, those questions that come into people's minds.
Yeah, love it, man. So then, almost all of our listeners are active real estate agents, team leaders, brokerage owners. So with that being said, is there things that you guys like where virtual assistants really shine in, or do you guys offer services and kind of anything A to Z in that space?
Well, anything A to Z, but what I find, if you start chunking up what tasks, if you say, that are most popular, I guess I could say, it's on the transaction coordinator side, but also on the follow-up side. Now, a lot of real estate agents buy leads every month that are probably cost you a good penny, right? Whether it's from Zillow leads, whether it's from offers, some other lead provider, I don't know, Redx or other lead providers, right? You pay a really, really good amount of money for those leads. And what we found that, if I'm going to get on my phone and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to block off, let's say 2 hours a day to outbound dial those leads. I find the first day from 9 to 11 or 9 to, let's say it's 9 to 11. I'm hammering the phones. All of a sudden now I get a buyer lead that comes in. I take the call. Now all of a sudden my outbound dialing stops, right? So now go to the next day, happens again. Next day, your kid wants to go golf with it. Guess what didn't happen? Your golf, right? Your golf obviously was, whether you're good or not, didn't matter. You're out there with your family, but all of those tasks stop. So rinse and repeat next week, rinse and repeat. Next month, you buy more leads. Before you know it, now you've only talked to 20 people, but you bought 200 leads, right? And then you can rinse and repeat. All of a sudden now you bought 500, 600, 700 leads. You only talked to 100 people. And out of those 100 people, 90 of them said, follow up with me next week. Follow up with me next month. So what we found works very, very well with virtual assistants is to put them into a nurture campaign. So what that looks like is all of those leads that you bought and all of those individuals you talked to that did not want to list with you or didn't fit within your buyer's model today or didn't want to buy today, virtual assistants put them into a nurture campaign. And what happens is, so they go email, text, call, rinse and repeat, email, text, call, email, text, call. Now for me, I get tired when I hear that, right? Because it just saps my energy. For me, sitting on the phone all day long, calling, right? That's not for any top producing real estate agent. When they make money, they're on their feet. They're talking, they're running, they're going from appointment to appointment, meeting with buyers, meeting with sellers, meeting with attorneys, right? Mortgage brokers. So for them to take that off their plate, we find a huge need for that within the real estate agent space.
I love it. And to set expectations, man. And I talked about this in that 4RD video podcast that it looks like that you watched. It's like, and I always prep agents for this. And I talk about the financial aspect as well that you talked about. Talk about the, you got to be at a certain capacity level where there's a need, for the assistant. But I'm like, you got to really set clear expectations on when you can start to see those results and those ROIs. And like if I have a coaching client, I'm prepping them for, and I'm big of hope for the best, plan for the worst. So I'll tell them, 9 months before you start seeing a good ROI on an admin. Now this is with me, because I might train them for 3 months before I fully let them go on their own, right? Meaning I just bought that 40 hours back of my time to go out there and lead generate more, whatever. And it sounds like you guys have much more of a streamlined process, so it may be quicker than that. But so people don't expect to jump in and all of a sudden in a month their business is doubled, right? I mean, I find that so many, especially in the real estate space, because we're so impatient, right? They stop 3 feet short of gold, man. So how what is enough time to really give this and plan and prep for to start seeing those great results?
So great question. I mean, there's 2 different reasons why a real estate agent would want a virtual assistant. It's to get their time back. That's totally different than someone who wants to close deals or more deals, right? So if you separate those two, the definition of time may be what I explained before, spending more time with my family, and I know all that other stuff gets done, right? And the other side of it is if you really want to drive in revenue, right, to where, like I said, the lead generation side, the lead follow-up is consistently going. It'll take about 3 months. It can happen before then because, I mean, you know this. You could send out a direct mail piece today. Maybe you don't get anything today, but tomorrow you'll get one. Whereas, one of your students, it'll take, it just won't hit for another 2-3 months because they're branding we're always branding. We're always looking at what we're doing in the market. You may get a referral, right? So I would say on average, it's about 3 months.
Yep. Three months before you start seeing
some activity, right? Calls back, appointments set, some traction, right? Yeah. Momentum. I hear people say that, hey, I just got, so like for me, I'm a perfect example. When I first started real estate investing, I got friggin' lucky, right? So when there was a vacant property, I put an offer in, they accepted my offer right away, right? My first friggin' offer. And I'm like, all right, that is lucky. I'm the worst person to look at as an example, right? But the positive thing there is when I got that deal, I had no contractors. I knew nothing about anything, right? Ended up figuring it out, made 32 grand, but guess what? I had zero in play. I had no marketing set up. I had no branding set up. I knew nobody in the industry except Junior, who I ended up getting as my contractor. That was it, right? So I had no systems and processes. Yeah, I got lucky. It was equivalent of someone giving me $32,000 to start my business when I was done after doing that rehab. Right. So to your point, it happened within that time, but I had no systems. I had no standard operating procedures. I had nothing. So I was actually behind the individuals that didn't make money within that 3 months. Does that make sense, or did I confuse the heck out of you?
No, that makes perfect sense, man. And then, what's the average like onboarding process? Like, let's just say I hire a VA for the transaction management side to really learn my processes, to learn all of this. Cause I'm guessing if they're within your firm, they have a lot of experience with your other customers and whatnot. Like how long before it's like, I can start buying that time back to whether I invest that to grow my business or go out and play.
So the onboarding process, you meet with, so it's kind of interesting. We have a placements team in place where once we get all of the tasks in that, let's say you want transaction coordinating, let's say you want follow-ups, you want to make sure you have a VA and follow-up. So what we do is we contact our recruiting department and make sure that we have the VAs coming from our recruiting department to our training department, all the way to our placements department. And I like to call our placements department like matchmaker.com or match.com, I guess, where we have the real estate agent come in here, and then we have the VA come here, and we match up that skill set and experience, to what that actually, what the tasks are with that VA or with the client and the VA, right? To make sure that, if you want just admin, that's a different skill set of a VA than a phone admin, right? So, disc profiling, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with disc profiling, right? Behavioral kind of personality assessment, kind of mix of those. Not that we want to get off on a tangent, but you're really more of a high D, high I if you want a phone admin, like an ISA, right? ISA in the agent world. So inside sales agent, is what that means. So that would be different. After that, it takes about 10 days to get started. From the time you raise your hand to the time we get you on 3 interviews where we handpick the VAs for exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah. No, awesome, dude. Awesome, man. Then, and where I see what's so cool about this and with you guys is you guys' company is your extensive real estate background. Being a real estate agent, being an investor, plus coaching and building these massive coaching companies for real estate agents and investors. You know the needs that they have. Where we hear the horror stories is somebody looks up some VA company that just happens to be in the Philippines, but they're so broad, specialized in all, they don't have a specialty. They're just, and then they don't have, it sounds like you guys really have the back end systems dialed in, which allow us to have much more of I don't want to say fully plug and play, but a hell of a lot more success with it.
Yeah, it's fun. I just got a phone today with one of the biggest brokers in Brooklyn, New York. I'm from Connecticut. So from in Brooklyn, New York, and he's bringing on another one of our VAs to actually do calling because he's recruiting agents into his office. So he wants a phone VA, as an example. He wants a phone VA as a broker to recruit agents to come in to follow his script specifically. So what he does is he hands over our script, and then we help train that virtual assistant on his script. So then when they start going, they're fully vetted and fully trained on that script. So that works really, really well on all of that process of vetting, bringing them on, training them specific to exactly what you want. Because I always look at 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the business is really where it's unique to you, it's unique to me, it's unique to any other agent out there, because we all run our business. Real estate is not changing too much, right? So we all learn the same stuff, but it's that 20% that's the magic.
Yep. Love it, dude. And then, and I'm sure you guys have a website that breaks a lot of this stuff down, but, a mistake that I see, and I always cringe when I see it, when people see a real estate agent post like, well, what's a good but extremely affordable, vendor for XYZ? And I'm like, well, do you want extremely good or do you want cheap? Like, which one matters most to you? Because you're not going to get both, right? But, I see a lot of people that want VAs because they're like, oh, I get to pay only, $5 or $3 an hour. And I've yet to ever see one of those relationships work out, right? But from a financial investment side, like what does it look like? What do some of the tiers and options look like? Just to give maybe us an idea.
Yeah, we break it down very simple. It's either part-time or full-time. We don't do project-based. We just do part-time, full-time. Part-time is $9.60 an hour. There's no hidden fees. Here's one of the things. I'm glad you actually brought that up, because we invest a lot back into our virtual assistants, not only on the training side, but also we pay for health insurance. They have very high competitive pay. And the reason why we do those things, we offer loans, 0% loans as well to our virtual assistants, because we want to make sure that they stay with us long-term. You realize that in the corporate world, the reason why a lot of people stay within those companies, even here, is because of the benefit packages that they give them. So part-time is $10.60 an hour, full-time is $9.60 an hour. No hidden fees. It's not going to be like, hey, it's not going to be those Capital One or those other commercials that say, hey, hidden fees, no hidden fees, sir. But there's none with us. That's it, $9.60, $10.60.
Yeah, it's epic. And then you don't have to worry about office space. Yeah, right. You're paying the taxes, so I'm not paying the taxes. Right? Or you're paying the insurance, so I'm not, right? So just makes sense, man. For those that are watching, listen, man, if they want to go learn more about the services that you have. Maybe they want to book I don't know if there's a discovery call that they can do to see if you guys are a fit, but like, where's the best place, dude, to get in touch with you and learn more about the services that you guys provide?
Absolutely. It's REVAGlobal.com. So REVA Global.com. There's a button right on the website that you could set up a strategy session, right, to go over exactly what we're talking about, exactly what you said. So just check us out there.
Yep. Love it. All right. So I always end the podcast with this question, man, and this is going back to you personally, but, knowing everything that you know now through, all these different ventures that you've done in your professional business, entrepreneurship world, if, Bob today could go back to Bob when you hung up your helmet in the hockey, your hockey career, and have a conversation with yourself at that point, again, knowing everything you know now, and give yourself 2 pieces of advice that you feel would have just massively fast forward the success journey that you're on, what would those 2 pieces of advice look like?
I would definitely say, in some of that I did, but not, I would say you gotta get a coach. You gotta get a mentor. I look at, and hopefully I'm not taking this off course, but I look at coaching programs higher than college. Here's why. Hopefully I'm not losing everyone. They're getting mad at me right now, but the one thing I really enjoy about coaching programs is you could take a course, and then usually there's an action plan attached to that course, right? So what I mean is if it's farming areas, there's usually an action plan on farming areas, as an example. Lead generation, there's usually an action plan to that. And with college, you take the class and then you take another. and you take a test, but that test, you don't apply what you learned in that class. That's what I mean. So just to clarify that. So number one, it's coaching and mentoring. I'm a true believer in, if you want to take the next step. I mean, everyone heard this before. Michael Jordan would never be good if you're going to have a coach, and all these professionals, these top level professionals, never had a coach in business, sports, same thing. So I would say coach is number one. And I would say the next one is, especially as a real estate entrepreneur, do the best you can, not listening to naysayers, right? Because we all have them. Some of them are family members, which is the most difficult thing. And we have a lot of pressure against us, because until we close that first deal, second deal, third deal, and then all of a sudden those naysayers, all of a sudden they threw it away. They never knew that they beat you down at the beginning. So I would say, you look at, if anyone out there has a golden retriever and you take a tennis ball, they just look right at that tennis ball. If you throw it in the road, guess what? They're going after it. Yeah. So I would say put those blinders on, and just beat off all those naysayers, and just try to do the best you can to block them out. Maybe get an accountability partner to make sure you both keep each other up. So if there's a naysayer and you friends, family, whatever, social media is great, but it also sucks, because once you hit a certain amount of success, people are going to start trying to beat you down, which, those are people that never, ever, ever typically got to where you are going or where you are. So I guess, I don't know if I went on a tangent, sorry about that, but I think those are the two things that are important.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And that brought up another question that I have for you is, because dude, I mean, you were a professional athlete. So you grew up, I'm guessing, most your life up until the point where that career ended, with always having coaches. At what point did it click that, oh shit, I need to treat my business like I did my athletic career and hire a coach? Like, at what point was that like self-discovery period?
What's funny? It was pretty much after I got my first deal, right? Because I went out there on my own, and I was out on my own. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, right? I was floundering. I got lucky, like I said, in that first deal. And then I actually joined a real estate conference. I went to a real estate conference, and I saw a speaker speak, and right then and there, I knew it. I'm like, you know what? I got to go back to my roots. And then I went to that conference. And after that conference, I seeked out the best person in the area that was the top real estate person in Connecticut. Went up to him, shook his hand, said, hey, I'm not looking for any money, but do you have any openings in your business? And he goes, you know what? I actually do. I have an acquisition position. You're going to laugh at this one. So you know what I did the first year in business right after I closed that deal? I door knocked for 1 full year. Yeah. So I brought in a crap ton of money for him, didn't make a penny, and I was okay with it. Year 2, we ended up becoming business partners, and the windfall started. So I knew in real estate or in sports, I had to put in my time in. I had to spend time in the gym, especially when nobody's watching. That's when, us real estate professionals need to listen to podcasts on our off time, read books, network. Nobody sees the hard stuff that we do to really make it. They only see what, think about how hard it took you to make this as successful as it is, right? People have no idea what that is. So my recommendation is just do the work, put your time in. You don't have to throw it all over social media, the work you do, because that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff.
Yep. Love it. Such powerful words and powerful advice, man. And those watch and listen, I know we end every podcast with this, but information without implementation truly is the start of delusion. Information isn't power. It's taking massive action on the information that you learn that gives you the power to create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Bob shared so many amazing piece of advice with you guys today. Take something that you learn, take immediate action. So again, you can go out there and create that life that you know you want and deserve. And right below, wherever you're watching or listening to this, we're going to have links so you guys can go check out REVA Global LLC. Everything that Bob just spoke about with the virtual assistant. You can check out their platform, their program. Highly recommend that you do. I know that's the first thing I'm doing the second that we hang up here as well. Again, thank you guys for watching and listening. Bob, I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here. I know it's a little bit later where you're at, man, and it truly means a lot. And it's an honor to have you here, dude.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, man.
100%, my friend. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. Peace.